My wife's ex-husband called and demanded that I pay for my stepson's college in full, or he would take me to court for custody, so I told him to fuck off and do whatever he want. I-45M stared at my phone in disbelief, my ex-wife's husband's number still flashing on the screen. The conversation we'd just had replayed in my mind, each word stoking a fire of anger and indignation in my chest. "You need to pay for the kid's college. All of it," he had demanded, his voice dripping with entitlement. "Excuse me?" I'd responded, caught off guard by the abruptness of his call and the audacity of his request. "You heard me. You've been in his life for what, 8 years now? Time to step up and be a real father." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. "Look, I care about my stepson, but his college fund isn't solely my responsibility. We've all been contributing." He cut me off. "Not good enough. Either you cover it all, or I'm taking you to court for full custody. Your choice." That's when I lost it. "You know what? Fuck off. Do whatever you want. I'm done with your bullshit." I hung up, my hand shaking with rage. Who the hell did he think he was? My wife found me pacing in our home office, muttering under my breath. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern etched on her face. I relayed the conversation to her, watching as her expression morphed from worry to shock to anger. "He said what?" she exclaimed. "He has no right." "I know," I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "But what if he's serious about the custody thing?" She shook her head firmly. "He won't get anywhere with that. You've been an amazing stepfather to our son. We've got nothing to worry about." I wished I could share her confidence, but doubt gnawed at me. What if the court saw things differently? What if my stepson resented me for not caving to his father's demands? Over dinner that night, we decided to talk to my stepson about the situation. He listened quietly as we explained, his fork pushing food around his plate. "So, what do you think?" I asked tentatively, bracing myself for his response. He looked up, his eyes meeting mine. "I think my dad's being a jerk," he said flatly. "You've done more for me in the past 8 years than he has my whole life. You don't owe him anything." Relief washed over me, followed quickly by a surge of affection for this kid who'd become such an important part of my life. "Thanks, buddy," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "That means a lot." But our moment of family unity was short-lived. The next day, a formal letter arrived from my wife's ex-husband's lawyer, threatening legal action if we didn't comply with his demands. "He's actually going through with this," I said in disbelief, staring at the official-looking document. My wife snatched the letter from my hands, her face flushing with anger as she read. "Oh, this is ridiculous. He can't possibly think he has a case." We spent the next few days in a whirlwind of stress and confusion, consulting with lawyers, gathering financial documents, trying to understand our rights and options, all while attempting to maintain some semblance of normalcy for my stepson's sake. The strain was taking its toll on all of us. I caught my wife crying in the bathroom one night, her sobs muffled by a towel. My stepson grew quieter, retreating to his room more often than usual. "And me?" I oscillated between rage and fear, unsure of how to protect my family from this threat. It all came to a head one evening when my stepson overheard us arguing about the situation. "Maybe I should just not go to college," he said from the doorway, his voice small and defeated. "It's not worth tearing the family apart." We both turned to him, shocked. "No, absolutely not," I said firmly. "Your education is important. We'll figure this out." "But at what cost?" he asked, his eyes welling up with tears. "I don't want to be the reason you guys are fighting. I don't want to lose this family." In that moment, seeing the pain and fear in my stepson's eyes, something shifted inside me. The anger that had been fueling me for days dissipated, replaced by a steely resolve. I pulled him into a hug, feeling his shoulders shake as he cried. "Listen to me," I said softly. "You are not losing this family. Not now, not ever. We're going to fight this together." The next day, I called a family meeting. My wife and stepson sat at the kitchen table, looking at me expectantly. "Here's what we're going to do," I began. "First, we're going to counteroffer. We'll increase our contribution to the college fund, but within reason, something we can afford without compromising our financial stability." They nodded, and I continued. "Second, we're going to document everything, every contribution we've made to your education and well-being over the years. Every soccer game attended, every school project helped with, every family vacation. We'll show the court, if it comes to that we're a real family, not just on paper." And third, I said, looking directly at my stepson, we're going to make sure you know that no matter what happens, you're our kid. Biology be damned. For the first time in days, I saw a glimmer of hope in both their eyes. We spent the next few weeks preparing, gathering bank statements, school records, photographs, building a case that showed not just our financial contributions, but the emotional investment we'd made in my stepson's life. My wife reached out to her ex, trying one last time to reason with him, but he remained adamant, convinced that he could strong-arm us into submission. Finally, the day of our court appearance arrived. As we walked into the courthouse, I felt a mix of dread and determination. My stepson squeezed my hand, a gesture that nearly broke my composure. The proceedings were a blur of legal jargon and emotional testimony. My wife's ex painted a picture of neglect and financial irresponsibility, claiming that he was the only one truly looking out for his son's future. When it was our turn, we presented our evidence methodically. Bank statements showing consistent contributions to the college fund. School reports praising my stepson's academic achievements, with notes about parental involvement. Photos of family trips, holidays, everyday moments that showed a loving, stable home. My stepson's testimony was the turning point. He spoke eloquently about the positive impact I'd had on his life, the support and encouragement he'd received from both me and his mother. My stepdad taught me how to change a tire, helped me with my college applications, and sat with me all night when I was sick with the flu, he said, his voice steady. He's been more of a father to me than anyone. I saw my wife's ex flinch at those words, a flicker of doubt crossing his face for the first time. When the judge finally rendered her decision, I held my breath. She spoke at length about the importance of stability and emotional support in a child's life, emphasizing that parenthood was about more than financial contributions. While I commend the biological father's interest in his son's education, she said, I find no grounds for altering the current custody arrangement. The stepfather has clearly been a positive and consistent presence in the child's life. The current arrangement for funding the child's education seems fair and adequate. Relief washed over me as the judge's words sank in. We'd won. Our family was safe. As we left the courthouse, my wife's ex approached us. For a moment, I tensed, ready for another confrontation. But the fight seemed to have gone out of him. I may have misjudged the situation, he said grudgingly. Maybe we can talk about a more reasonable arrangement for the college fund. I nodded, too emotionally drained to feel triumphant. We're willing to discuss it, I said. For his sake. I gestured to my stepson, who was watching the exchange warily. That evening, we celebrated our victory with a quiet family dinner. As we sat around the table, I looked at my wife and stepson, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. I want you both to know, I said, my voice thick with emotion, that I would do it all again in a heartbeat. You're my family, and I'll always fight for us. My stepson grinned. Even if it means dealing with more of Dad's crazy demands? I laughed, feeling the tension of the past weeks finally start to dissipate. Even then, although let's hope we're done with courtrooms for a while. As the days passed, life slowly returned to normal. My wife's ex, chastened by the court experience, became more reasonable in his dealings with us. We renegotiated the college fund contributions, finding a balance that worked for everyone. My stepson threw himself into his college applications with renewed enthusiasm. I spent hours helping him craft essays, discussing career options, and visiting campuses. It wasn't always easy, college prep never is, but it felt good to be working towards a positive future instead of fighting over the past. One evening, as I was helping him sort through acceptance letters, he turned to me with a serious expression. You know, he said, I've been thinking about changing my last name to yours. I stared at him stunned. Are you sure? That's a big decision. He nodded. I'm sure. You're my dad, in all the ways that matter. I want my name to reflect that. I pulled him into a hug, too overwhelmed to speak. In that moment, all the stress and fear of the past months faded away, replaced by a profound sense of love and belonging. When we told my wife, she cried happy tears, hugging us both fiercely. We should celebrate, she said, wiping her eyes. How about ice cream? As we sat around the kitchen table, laughing and planning the name change process, I marveled at how far we'd come. From that angry phone call to this moment of pure joy, it had been a roller coaster of emotions. But looking at my family, my wife beaming with pride, and my son, because that's truly what he was now, excitedly discussing his college plans, I knew it had all been worth it. The road hadn't been easy, and I'm sure we'd face more challenges in the future. Blended families always do. But we'd face this test together and come out stronger for it. As I watched my son and wife playfully argue over the last scoop of ice cream, I felt a deep sense of contentment wash over me. This was my family, messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. I thought back to that phone call, to the anger and fear I'd felt. If I could go back, would I change my response? Maybe. But I wouldn't change where we ended up. Because sometimes it takes a threat to your family to realize just how much they mean to you. Sometimes you need to fight for what matters most. And as I joined in the ice cream debate, laughing at my son's dramatic pleas for the last bite, I knew one thing for certain. I'd fight for this family every single day for the rest of my life. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because they were worth it. In the end, it wasn't about the money or the legal battles. It was about love, commitment, and the true meaning of family. And on that front, we were richer than I'd ever imagined possible.